In June, legislation was passed to allow the implementation of the Asia Region Funds Passport that will change the way Australian fund managers operate. Chris Donohoe from APIR Systems Limited joins me today to discuss the significance of this development. Welcome,
Thank you,
Chris.
Thank you very much.
So what impact will the Asia Region Funds Passport have on domestic fund managers?
I think there's three key impacts, and there's probably more, but most importantly, it's an export opportunity for our fund managers here. So the ability to expand outside of the domestic market. Two, when we're talking about impacts, no doubt it will bring in competition into the marketplace, and that should be a positive for investors out there. Third, which is not talked about as much, is there is an opportunity for fund managers to actually become distributors of those overseas products, to actually increase the stable products that they can offer out there. So I think there are three fairly powerful impacts that this should have over time.
So when we're talking about a passport, what sort of countries are we talking about that will be opened up to Australian fund managers?
Well, there was a memorandum of cooperation signed in 2016. And on that was Japan, Korea, Australia, New Zealand, and more recently Thailand also signed on to that as well. Since that, what we've seen is legislation passed in those countries, as you mentioned here. Japan passed legislation earlier this year, and Thailand has as well. And we believe that Korea and New Zealand will be passing theirs towards the back end of the year.
So another key element of this initiative is the corporate collective investment vehicle bill. That's quite a mouthful. What sort of critical role will this play? It's currently in draft at the moment.
Yeah, we can call it CCIV for short. But quite simply, the legislation that's just passed, which is the ARFP, that really provides a framework. What the CCIV does is actually provide a product type, if you like, which is a change again to the corporations law. What a lot of people don't realise is that we are very comfortable here in Australia with this concept of trust, not so much in Asia. So what we've done is design a vehicle that looks a little bit more like what they're used to, or investors are used to purchasing in Asia. So it plays a critical role in terms of getting our products up and out.
Okay. When we talk about other elements involved in this process, there's also this thing called undertakings for collective investment in transferable securities, or Useits for short. That's another mouthful. Look, what role will that play in this?
I'll call them Useits. Look, what that is, it's essentially a mutual fund framework that came out of Europe, which has done a similar thing to what we're trying to achieve here. So having a product that's acceptable across borders throughout Europe, but that also permeated through to Asia as well. So Useit is now the common, if you like, collective investment scheme structure. So the role that it actually played was more from a design and proven model. So when the stakeholders got together to actually design the products, they had a model that they knew had worked in mind. So it played a critical part in the design elements of the ARFP and subsequently the CCIV structure.
Right. Now, the Standardised Regional Identification Scheme is another thing that you've been advocating for. What's the significance of that?
Yeah, very much so. Each product will have its own, if you like, identification regime per jurisdiction. We're not about telling them that they should adopt any particular one. Out here, the standard is the APIR code. In other parts of Asia, it's actually the ISIN. What we're really advocating for is a single identifier, almost like an umbrella identifier across all those regions. Because if I can give an example, if Perpetual took a product, an Australian share fund, up into Asia and distributed that in Japan or Thailand, it will have a particular class and have a different code. What we're advocating for is a single code that sits across that. Now, the benefit of that to all stakeholders, if I point them out, very important to regulators. So a regulator down here, such as ASIC, would be able to interrogate a system, perhaps like ours, by that umbrella number and actually know where that product is actually distributed and what its identification is. So we think those are very important Product manufacturers as well, the manager itself will be able to interrogate via that unique number also and find out where that's actually distributed as well. So we think there's real benefits, and what we've said from the beginning is that we really advocate getting it right from the beginning, rather than getting down the track with this and then saying, hey, gee, we didn't think of that. We're trying to get this out and get some, get some support around this umbrella model throughout Asia.
Now, Chris, there have been some suggestions that a change to the withholding tax structure that's currently in place will be needed to make the ultimate goal of this whole initiative work. How critical is that?
Well, Treasury, the ATO and the industry working together on this particular issue, and I know they're making headways. It is an issue, but the research that we've done and some of the professionals around tax that we've spoken to don't make it out to be the big issue that some thought. Yeah. So I don't think it's going to be a major impediment. So I think this can actually move ahead and develop over the next 3 to 4 years. And I think some of those issues will be addressed. But as I said, our research and evidence is that it's not going to be the showstopper that some people thought it would be.
Okay, Chris, that was very insightful. Thank you very much for your time this afternoon.
Thank you very much, Darren. Cheers.